When the first rain of the season fell, the mango tree smelled like sugar and rust. I was kneeling in the mud, pulling up weeds around my grandmother's old garden when the spade struck tin. The box was rusted through, its latch eaten by years of monsoon salt. Inside lay a bundle of paper, fused together like pressed leaves. The ink had bled into shy blues and violets, as if trying to forget its own words. In the classroom that evening, I laid each page between sheets of blotting paper. The ceiling fan ticked lazily, the generator hummed its half-life tune. As the pages separated, sentences reappeared. Mira, the mango tree is fruiting early. I wish you could see it. Every letter was addressed to her, Mira, and none were posted. Later that night, by the dim yellow of the inverter bulb, I cross-checked the name in the staff files the board had just sent. Nisha Mira Rao, headmistress, temporary posting, pending inspection. My pulse tripped. At dawn, the storm had cleared, but the smell of wet soil lingered. I took one letter out to the veranda. Something slipped from between the pages. An invitation printed in pink ink, dated 1972. Lantern Festival, canceled due to storm. The edges were singed as if it had been close to fire once. That morning, Nisha arrived at the school. A crisp sari, her hair pulled into a no-nonsense knot. I tried clumsily to ask if her family had once lived here. She looked at me with mild suspicion. Why do you ask? I folded the invitation into my palm. Just sorting through old school records. She nodded, but didn't smile. Outside, the bell rang, echoing through damp corridors. Day 1, 7 days before inspection. That night, I dreamed of letters floating down the flooded garden like paper boats, each carrying a name that had been spoken too softly to survive. By the 3rd day, the rain had turned the playground into a mirror. I suggested to Nisha that we start a heritage corner for the inspection. Old photographs, stories from retired teachers. She hesitated, then agreed, perhaps because it sounded bureaucratically safe. The archives were kept in the storeroom of the old training school, a sagging structure with dust thick enough to remember everyone who'd entered. As we pried open the wooden cabinet, the air smelled of camphor and mold. Nisha reached for a photo envelope labeled Class of 74. Her fingers brushed mine, a spark. Then both of us pretending it hadn't happened. She held the photo to the light filtering through broken shutters. A row of young women stood in crisp uniforms, my grandmother among them, smiling like she knew something she couldn't yet say. Beside her, another woman, same sharp jawline as Nisha's, same eyes. Their hands nearly touched, but didn't. "Is that your grandmother?" I asked quietly. Nisha nodded, the movement small. She never talked about that year, said she had an offer to teach in Mumbai, but something went wrong. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. For a moment, we both just watched the dust swirl in the beam of our flashlight. Timestamp, day 4, last sweep in 3 days. Later, over cutting chai at the canteen, she softened. "You really think these stories matter?" I smiled. "If we don't tell them, someone else will erase them for us." She didn't answer, but when we parted, she pressed the photograph into my notebook. Her hand lingered just long enough to make silence feel full. The 6th day began with the sky the color of wet cement. I found the final letter wedged under the tin's false bottom, its wax seal unbroken. My breath caught. At my desk, I warmed the seal gently with a candle. The wax softened, releasing the faint smell of sandalwood. Inside, the letter was dated the night of the canceled festival. Mira, meet me by the bridge. We will go before dawn. My grandmother had written of plans to elope, to leave their teaching posts and live openly somewhere new. But the storm that night had washed the bridge away. One had waited, the other never came. I carried the letter straight to Nisha's office. She sat amid inspection forms and official seals. Her face hardened as I laid the letter down. They were going to leave together, I said. She traced the old ink, her expression unreadable. My grandmother was blamed for the scandal. She was told she'd betrayed a colleague. Everyone believed it. I shook my head. That story's wrong. Maybe, she said. But what difference does it make now? The report's due tomorrow. That night, I did something reckless. I called the local press and invited them to a lantern heritage exhibit at the school grounds, one evening only. I borrowed lamps from neighbors, pinned up photographs, placed the letters in glass sleeves. When I returned home, a student whispered that someone from the district office was already warning Nisha that a teacher was trying to politicize the inspection. I swallowed fear like rainwater. In the quiet, I reread one line from the confession. If the bridge falls, remember I waited for you beneath the mango tree. The day of inspection came like a wound in slow motion. Nisha arrived in a gray cotton sari, the color of ash before flame. The board officers trailed behind, their umbrellas like black wings. But when dusk fell, villagers began lighting lanterns. Children carried them across the schoolyard, laughter bouncing against old walls. The exhibition tables glowed with reflections of letters and photographs, stories resurrected by candlelight. I saw Nisha pause before the sealed letter, the wax emblem of the women's union shining red. They weren't reckless. They were brave. She turned to the inspectors. I'm reclassifying this property as a heritage learning site. The school stays. Murmurs rippled. Her signature trembled slightly as she wrote. After they left, the two of us stood beneath the mango tree, the lanterns rising in slow constellations. The rumor, I said, about your grandmother betraying mine, it wasn't true. She reported her to protect her from expulsion. It was the only way. Nisha's eyes softened. I wish she told me. I smiled faintly. Maybe she just waited for you to find out here. Silence wrapped us. The air smelled of rain and mango sap. I'll probably lose my job for this, I said. She smiled, and I'll spend months explaining to the board. So, fair trade? The last lantern lifted, its flame trembling before the night claimed it. She took my hand, light brushing our faces gold. No more letters waited to be found, only the sound of crickets, the rustle of wet leaves, and the faint echo of women who had once promised each other forever, and whose granddaughters were brave enough to answer.